Welcome to edition number 1 of the Open Tech News of the Week. Let's waste no time and just get started because we have a hell of a lot of things to cover and we don't have any time. So let's get rolling. Let's get started with the hardware category. First news here is Framework's success in raising 18 million US dollars. Framework has announced that they successfully have raised 18 million US dollars with lead investor Spark Capital. The money will be invested into their upcoming product categories and their upcoming modules, and I personally think that that is awesome news, since I, as you might have already noticed, am a huge fan of the concept of modular notebooks. So thumbs up, Framework, awesome news, and now it's your turn to make something great with that amount of money you just earned. GoPro has announced that it's going to re-expand its camera lineup. Nick Woodman, CEO and founder of GoPro, has announced this week that the company is pretty much going back to the business model they had before releasing the Hero 8 camera. Until then, they typically had more cameras, not only one major camera per year, and that is now going to come back. The idea they have is to basically release multiple cameras which are targeted towards specific audiences. So the same tech could basically be used to fulfill more specific needs and could therefore fit better in GoPro's audience's lifestyle. I have to admit, I was a huge fan of the Galaxy Note line of smartphones, and I frankly am quite a bit pissed that they stopped releasing new models in the past years. So reading about Motorola releasing a new stylus phone felt like a welcome thing for me, unless I looked at the price and the specs. Don't get me wrong, as everyone, I love cheap prices, but for 300 bucks you can't expect too much. So the device we see here, the Moto G stylus, is a typical mid-ranger. Let's be honest and let's be clear on that. It basically uses older tech or mediocre tech, and I would not expect too much from the stylus in itself. What Moto did, and I really appreciated, is that they included some more specialized apps for the stylus, like the screenshot editor, Moto Note, and the coloring book. But I would personally doubt that device could replace my Galaxy Note 10 Plus anytime soon. Nonetheless, it's great that we have such devices on the market with a long battery time, with some probably usable cameras, and with a 6.8-inch display with 90 Hz refresh rate. The device will be available in the United States from the 17th of February. Information about worldwide shipping is not available yet. System76, the makers of Pop! OS, released a new AMD-powered laptop called Kudu, and that laptop features a big 15.6-inch Full HD matte screen with 144 Hz refresh rate, and it rocks a 3rd gen Ryzen 9 5900HX processor with 8 cores and 16 threads. Wow, that is a lot. The laptop also features an embedded NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060 graphics card, can be equipped with up to 64 GB of DDR4 3200 MHz RAM, and it can be ordered with an SSD of up to 4 TB of size. The laptop is equipped with all the I/O one wants to have, such as a USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A port, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port with DisplayPort output, and a USB 2.0 Type A port. Additionally, there's also a mini display port available, and it also has an HDMI port, a headphone and a microphone combo jack, and then again a dedicated microphone jack. Let me put it that way, that sounds a lot like overkill. And obviously and naturally, since it is a product by System76, it is going to be shipped with either Pop! OS or with Ubuntu. And now to the bad news. The device costs from $1,800 US, and in that base configuration, and with that base configuration one will receive a device with 8 GB of RAM and a 240 GB SSD. If you want to enjoy the full goodness of pretty much everything, meaning 64 GB of RAM and 4 TB of SSD storage, you can pay $3,442 US. That's a lot of money. Coming to operating systems, the news of the week is obviously the new Slackware release. Yes, you heard it right, and if you are watching the video, you read it right. Slackware has a new version. It is version 15 of the famous distribution, and it basically took them just some 6 years or so for the new version. The announcement was made on the 2nd of February, and Slackware is back in the game. Part of the new release is actually a lot of changes, like Slackware now adopting PAM, adding support for Pipewire as an alternative to Pulse Audio, supporting Wayland in addition to X11, plus they also added 2 awesome desktop environments, XFCE and KDE Plasma. So Slackware 15 now being available. I personally feel like it's awesome to have a new version of Slackware available, but the majority of Linux users today uses different platforms. Nonetheless, awesome news, thumbs up, and let's keep rolling Slackware. Speaking of rolling, Arch Linux has a new ISO available. The Arch Linux 2022-02-01 snapshot obviously incorporates everything new within the Arch repositories and is shipped pre-installed with Linux 5.16 as default kernel. If you are amongst those still running a pretty old Linux kernel, such as the 4.4 LTS release, well, there is bad news for you this week. Linux kernel 4.4 LTS has reached its end of life. And after 6 years of support for those die-hard 4.4 kernel users, it will now be time to update and to upgrade. There's obviously an update and upgrade path available, since other kernels such as 4.9, 4.14, 4.19 are still supported, so you can still stay within the Linux 4 kernel ecosystem. And if you want to upgrade to newer kernel versions, there are also Linux kernels 5.4, 5.10 and 5.15 available as LTS versions. So in short, if you are still running 4.4 LTS, do an upgrade. If you happen to be one of the proud owners of one of the Raspberry Pis on the market, there's awesome news for you. Since Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit has been released. The OS has already been in quite an extensive beta period, and it is now available as a release version. So if you have a Raspberry Pi with, say, 8 GB of RAM, you should definitely think of moving over to the 64-bit version. Every configuration above 4 GB would benefit from the performance the native support of 64-bit memory addressing provides. Apart from that, there's unfortunately also some sort of bad news, as one can read in the announcement. The Chromium browser, which is shipped as the default browser, is not supporting streaming media from Netflix or Disney Plus. You would need to install a different version. My personal take on that is 64-bit is awesome. Chromium is... Let's move on. This week in security brought us a lot of troubling discoveries. Amongst the most troubling ones is a Samba bug, which may allow code execution as root on Linux machines and NAS devices. And as far as I know, that one is actually already actively being exploited. So if you run Samba for file sharing on your Linux or on your NAS device, look for an update and install it immediately. Another tool which is affected from a major vulnerability is Argo CD, the open source CD platform, which is very heavily used within the cloud native ecosystem, is subject to active exploitations already. So you should make sure that you update and upgrade your installations. The vulnerability is based on malicious Helm charts, and using those malicious Helm charts, the attackers could retrieve a lot of sensitive information such as passwords, secrets and API keys. So you should definitely go and update your Argo CD installation as soon as possible. But there's also good news regarding security. The OpenSSF Foundation has announced the start of the Alpha Omega project to improve software supply chain security for 10,000 OSS projects. The initiative is basically providing the different open source projects with direct engagement of software security experts and automated security testing. Sponsors of Alpha Omega are Microsoft and Google. The amount of money in this specific project is $5 million. I personally feel like that is a good idea, although the thing that actually troubles me when I look at the players there, Microsoft and Google, is that I would imagine that basically a lot of funding will be going into providing the projects with Microsoft or Google infrastructure. Still better than nothing, but to all of those 10,000 projects that are going to be identified, take care, since the path to vendor lock could be paved with $5 million. Haven't heard enough bad news regarding security and tracking this week? No worries, I can help you. According to an article of Gizmodo, your graphics card can be used to track your movements on the web. The article reads that in a paper, researchers from universities in Israel, Australia and France have discovered a unique device fingerprinting strategy that uses the properties of each user's GPU to create distinct and trackable profiles. Currently, that approach is not yet in production, at least not as far as we know, but it's just a matter of time since companies such as Apple and operating systems such as Linux make it pretty hard to track users across websites and sites. So the advertising industry is definitely keen on identifying you without any doubt, and they will definitely look into that. The researchers have ultimately tested more than 2,500 devices with 1,600 distinct CPU configurations, and they found out, yes, one could use that information to uniquely identify the users. So, what should you do now? I'd say get a new graphics card. Everything is becoming more expensive, and now we come to one of those companies who actually did not increase their prices for their subscription services in more than 4 years. Amazon. Amazon will increase and raise prices of its Prime subscription by 16%, and that move is expected to happen for new users around the 18th of February, and for existing customers the prices will go up after the 25th of March. Frankly, that was to be expected. First of all, the costs for licenses are rising, and apart from that, pretty much every other competitor in the market has already raised their prices, so it was just a matter of time until Amazon will raise their prices as well. And the last news of this week is about Mark Zuckerberg becoming a poor man. Meta, Facebook's mother company, has managed to basically crash roughly 25% of their market value just within one evening. That happened after they announced in their quarterly profit earnings that they would not have any raise in user numbers. In fact, they have lost a lot of members, and they also had to announce a 10 billion loss on the Metaverse project. Apart from that, they blamed Apple for everything bad, since their privacy initiative would cost them roughly $10 billion per year. What shall I say? Mark, if you need a room to sleep, just give me a call. You have my number somewhere on Facebook. And the fate of poor Mark Zuckerberg wraps up this week's show. If you liked it, well, then you know what to do. And while you are there, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, since it helps. See you next time. Thanks for watching. And don't forget, let's make the world a better place. See you later. Take care. Bye.